Dennis and Tommy with you once again.
Yeah!
That was a really loud yeah!
Well, am I too loud?
Well, when you went yeah, it completely spiked the meter.
Well, normally you tell me I'm too low.
No, we're good.
Okay.
No hollering! Although it is quite fun to holler.
See, you're not funny. I'm funny.
Alright.
Yeah.
Alright, well, anyhow, we started Isaiah. Was that 2 weeks ago? Yeah,
you weren't here
because
last week.
Last week was Thanksgiving.
You were too busy in your car having fun.
Yeah, you're jealous. Okay, so 2 weeks ago we started going through Isaiah, and we made it up into the paragraph that mine Bible, my Tanakh here is labeled worthless offerings. And
worthless offerings. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's where we had left off.
Well, we had already read about some worthless offerings starting from about verse 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we stopped on verse 14. That's as far as we made it.
And remember, the purpose of God talking about worthless offerings is not that he's saying to... Let me stop for a minute, because I just got a revelation here. You know how the Christians always say that Jesus did away with the law?
Yeah.
Well, if you wanted to, you could read Isaiah and go, look, God just did away with the law. He goes, I don't want your sacrifices. So... why do we have to even look at Jesus for that? Couldn't we just go to Isaiah if we wanted to be literal and say, verse 11, I don't delight in your blood of bulls. Yay, we're off the hook. Why do you come before me? Bring me no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination. The new moons and the Sabbaths and the calling of assemblies, take them away. It's sin. Even a solemn meeting. You know what? That seems a lot more in your face and direct than anything they say that Jesus ever did, doesn't it? I mean, the most they said about Jesus was, well, he said we could eat whatever we want because it's not what goes in the mouth, it's what comes out.
Well, but you got to go back. Because
I know, but I'm just saying, with Jesus, you got to go on to that it's pots and pans.
Yeah.
And cleaning hands. Or the other one, that he plucked. So you could do what you want. He's the Lord of the Sabbath. Yeah, and I'm the Lord of the dance. Okay, look, you know. The Sabbath is not there for... If he's the Lord of the Sabbath, does that mean that he's Satan and gets to do whatever he wants? Or does that mean he's the guardian of the Sabbath? Isn't that what it means? Mm-hmm. The guardian of the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not that he made a new one. That would be Korah. That would be, I'm going to swallow you up in the earth, God said. So... I look at Isaiah, and it's even though it's sarcastic.
Well, because it starts off in verse 4, woe a sinful nation.
Well, yeah, but he basically says right here in verse 13, take away your vain oblations. I don't want them. Take your, you know what? I say incense is an abomination to me. I don't even want it. Okay, God. I was being sarcastic.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you know, so we could but I'm just saying we could easily go right here and say that God, if we wanted to talk about how Jesus got rid of the law, which he didn't, same thing. We could say Isaiah got rid of the law, which he didn't. It all has to be in context, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and pick up here at verse 15, because if you use that same philosophy as we continue on here, then God doesn't want your prayers either. Because it says, when you spread your hands in prayer, I will give my eye against you. Actually, I read that wrong. I will hide my eyes from you.
Right.
Even if you were to intensify your prayer, I will not listen. Your hands are replete with blood.
Right. Now, what we have here is, first of all, there's several Hebrew words that we have to talk about. It says, when you spread forth your hands, I'll hide my eyes from you. Yes, when you make many prayers, or when you multiply your prayers, I will not hear. Now, when it says make many prayers, we could say, well, that's people making many prayers. That's about them. No, he says when you multiply your prayers in Hebrew, meaning your prayers are good, even if you were to do 10 times the amount.
Yeah, mine says intensify your prayer.
I don't even care.
That's the same thing.
Now, the hands full of blood in Hebrew is actually bloods. Meaning, it's not your hands are full of blood like you...
I don't have a plural here.
Well, that's because I'm looking at something else.
But you can't say the Hebrew is blood's plural.
I can say it because it says
because the Hebrew is not plural.
Mine says that Hebrew is blood.
Yeah, but I have a Tanakh, which
I don't think anybody wants to hear about your petty squabbles.
No, it takes precedence. I'm sorry.
Well, you were right about one thing before we started. I am going to make trouble for you.
Yeah, no doubt.
But then again, you're falling into the trap.
I'm not falling into any such trap.
Because you knew beforehand. You knew beforehand.
There's no such trap.
Okay, anyway, the Bloods, right?
The blood, yeah.
The Crips and the Bloods.
Yeah,
okay?
the blood.
Okay.
The singular blood.
Can I do mine? You've already made your point. And then you can make yours, okay? The Bloods, the alternate, could mean, for example, if you looked at blood, you could say there's blood on your hands, like maybe you killed somebody in an initial kind of, not a literal way, a figurative way. Bloods is a little bit more interesting only because it sounds like you've killed many nations or kinds of peoples. Different kinds of blood. Now, what is your counter argument, sir?
It's the same thing.
Blood?
Yeah. Your hands are replete with blood.
Right.
They're filthy.
But I'm saying it could be the blood from one guy.
Yeah, the bottom line is your hands are filthy.
Yes. I'm just saying, you're right. You're absolutely right. I'm saying, now, I'm not arguing with you. I always say argue with the book. My book says bloods in a footnote. Okay. Didn't say it was right. I said it says bloods. And if it was right, then you could say, well, that's interesting only because there's several kinds of blood on your hand instead of just, chicken blood or human blood or the blood of sin. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's this. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, look. Let me just tell you. I was reading something about what it says in Psalms about Jesus. Something that we don't normally look at, where it says, "I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my son. This day have I begotten you." Okay. But when I look at the Hebrew on that, it says, not I will declare the decree, but I will declare for a decree. And that's supposed to be a key sentence there to prove Jesus the Son of God. Believe it or not, I know. I say the same thing, eh? But even if we change it to for a decree from the decree, it changes the meaning a little bit. And if you change the meaning a little bit on a very important thing, like I was listening to someone talking about the Second Amendment, about how a lot of people try to argue the commas, like I've done, in order to segregate militia from arms. I thought I did it the right way, and I think I still did, but a lot of people use what I did, and have done before me, obviously, to make it that people shouldn't bear arms. That this was never about arms. This was about militias, which is an argument that I made, but I said it didn't matter anyway.
This is why being a constitutional originalist is so important, in order to understand the original intent of the Founding Fathers.
Right.
And then once you understand the intent and what was happening historically at the time period,
right,
you get a much better understanding.
Right, and that's why I say when we look at Isaiah and we say the intent, is it blood or bloods, we may have the word in your Tanakh says blood. I'm just wondering why in my King James as a footnote it says Hebrew, bloods, why they thought that it was important to say bloods.
We could also, if we really wanted to look into it, we could break the Strongs out.
We could
really delve into it, find other areas within the Tanakh where the exact Hebrew word was used in other places.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm not interested in finding out if you're right and I'm wrong. I was just saying that there is a separate meaning that, if it was right, would really increase it would open your mind to something that God is saying. In other words, why is God telling Isaiah to tell the people, I don't want to hear your prayers, even if you prayed 10 times as much?
Well, we know why, because they're a sinful nation.
Right. Well, we know that.
What's bad, though, is apparently even they were living in a sinful manner, which we don't know exactly what that sinful manner is. It doesn't tell us. But the point is, Israel is acting sinful, yet they're still praying. They're still bringing their sacrifices. And that's why God here is saying, don't even do that. If you're going to continue to sin, if you're not going to stop sinning,
right,
I don't want any of this stuff.
And that's why Jesus doesn't matter as a sacrifice, because even if he's the one sin for all sin sacrifice, which he's not, even if it was true, you can't accept that, in other words, make that a sacrifice and then keep sinning. You can't do it. The book of Hebrews says that. John Wesley says that. Antinomianism is not supposed to be a bad word. All it means is that you're against the idea of the letter of the law that you're about the spirit of the law. The nom means
Yeah.
the letter. But antinomianism has become that you can flout the law because somebody let you off the hook. It's become less about the fact that you're really living the law in your heart and more about, I know the judge, he'll let me off. That's what it's really become about. I have a personal relationship with God, and my personal relationship is he's in my pocket. So you're really a criminal. Because if you have the judge in your pocket, you're a criminal.
That mean you're bribing the judge?
Well, think of the words over a barrel. Okay? When somebody, if you have somebody over a barrel, what it means is they have to do what you want. You have them where you want them. But the words over a barrel themselves indicates, if you were to picture it, a person over a barrel. And I don't mean with their facing up. I mean facing down, which means only one thing at that point. Do I have to spell that out?
Not for me, you don't.
Exactly. So, verse 16.
Okay. Wash yourselves, purify yourselves, remove the evil of your deeds from before my eyes. Cease doing evil.
I apologize for thumping over here while you were talking. What you just said. The key here is to stop sinning. Now notice something very interesting. God says, you can multiply your prayers and I won't hear you. But if you make yourself clean, I will. There's still a chance. Even though you're so far gone, I don't even want to listen to you. Not all you have to do is accept Jesus. Now look at this. Wash you, make you clean. Every Christian will look at that and go, right, with the blood of Jesus. It sounds like a scene from Psycho, where you look down and you look down, and on the drain there's all this blood going down. So she washed herself with her own blood. Of course, that's a different thing. But wash you, make you clean. Who's doing the washing? You are. Who's making you clean? You are. Who's putting away the evil? You are.
Remove the evil from your deeds and before my eyes.
Stop doing evil. You have to stop. Not Jesus has to stop. You do. Look, Jesus is as far removed from us as we are from a Martian. He may as well have been from another planet the way he acted. Here's a guy who really didn't want to do this. Even at the end, he said, do I really have to do this? Even at the end when he went praying and he found his subjects asleep, his apostles asleep, he came back and he goes, it's your fault. It's your fault for being asleep. Why do I have to do this for a bunch of ingrates? Never mind, I'll go back and pray again. I mean, even when he said to Judas, go and do what you have to do, he wasn't like, this is good stuff. He was like, this sucks. I just wanted to have a nice Passover.
It's interesting. Here's Isaiah saying, stop doing evil. John the Baptist said, stop doing evil. Jesus said, stop doing evil.
Right. Just stop doing evil.
Will you stop it already?
That's why I've said to you, the most important part of the law is not obedience. It's refraining from evil. The most important thing is to not flout the negatives, to not break the negatives. For example, do not murder. We look at that and we go, got that one under control, yahooey. But for some odd reason, we don't count that in the plus column. We think that's neutral. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, fine, great, I'm okay with that. But we don't say that that's a plus. It is a plus that you haven't murdered someone. You might say to yourself, wait a minute, Tom, I lie a lot, but I don't murder. Do you think about murdering? Well, some people might say no, never. But other people might say yeah, all the time. Now, those people who think about it because they really want to murder someone, don't they get extra credit because they're the ones who are more prone to it? How about someone who commits adultery? We all know that that's a bigger temptation probably than anything. People get in these situations all the time. They're in the office, they're at a party, they're just out walking around, they're at the library, they're at the laundromat, whatever.